We better get back, because it'll be dark soon, and they mostly come at night. Mostly.
Welcome to Mostly Horror.
Mostly.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Sean.
And we got our first, actually, technically, I was going to say our first guest of the year, but Mike was on last week. Mike is technically our guest. This is our first interview of the year.
Yep.
We also, listen, if you're listening to if you're listening to this right now, either on Wondery or on our normal sites, normal streaming services, Apple Podcasts, whatever it may be, we gave you a special extra episode this week.
It's a twofer.
Two for the price of one. We got a BOGO.
Coupons. You showed up with the coupons, and we
This
delivered.
is a BOGO week brought to you by Night Swim. The episode that you're listening to right now is our normal episode with Night Swim director Bryce McGuire. But then we figured, we're gonna turn over a new leaf in this year of 2024, and we're gonna give you an episode with Amelie Hoferle and Gavin Warren, the two kids from Night Swim. And when I say that both of these interviews were wonderful and enjoyable, I'm not lying. So we figured we're not going to cram them all into one. We're going to let them have their own episodes, but we're going to shovel out two this week.
1 week, 2 episodes, 3 guests, new year. You're welcome.
Yes.
We just stacking it up. Man.
Hopefully this doesn't set a bad precedent. Don't expect this every week by any means.
Absolutely not.
You're lucky enough that you get one a week.
Calm down. All right, it's the fucking holidays.
We did an episode on Christmas. We did an episode on New Year's. We're already coming through hotter than normal.
But
we're
out here.
Wanted to do this. We do actually have one thing that we want to correct from our episode with Mike Scollins,
it's been an update.
Our Mostly Horror Spook 'em Scare 'em second annual episode. Hope you guys enjoyed that one. We, mostly me, when we were talking about most anticipated, I said Christmas, because when we were recording that, it was a bit before the episode came out. And at that time, Nosferatu and Jordan Peele's fourth upcoming film, or I should say upcoming fourth film, were supposed to come out on Christmas. And since then, Jordan Peele's movie has moved. It's TBD. TBD as of now. We don't know where it's going. I said that like a pirate. Where it's going. But regardless, right now, the only horror film coming out on Christmas of this year, 2024, is Nosferatu. So wanted to make that quick correction. I'm sure you already know that. And there's
that
other things that,
I was gonna say, do you think it has to be like related, right? Like they had a discussion maybe, or do you think?
I just don't.
Do you think?
I can't imagine that Nosferatu, like Robert Eggers' art film Nosferatu, is going to, like, Jordan Peele's a hit maker, dude. He is a blockbuster creator.
Yeah.
I would be worried. It would make more sense if Robert Eggers was like, whoa, let's shift this Nosferatu shit to another
Maybe
day.
they're buds. Maybe Jordan Peele was like, oh shit, Nosferatu comes out that day. I'm going to be busy.
Yeah, he's going to want to watch
see it.
That's very true. But yeah, so that moved. And listen, there's other things that you probably already know, but we're going to save those for the extra episode that you guys have today. We'll still do a Mostly Horror Rec at the end of this one, so definitely stick around after the interview. But listen, let's not waste any time. Let's get you guys over to our interview, our conversation with Bryce McGuire, who was a wonderful fellow. It was very. I had never really heard of Bryce before before watching Night Swim and then watching subsequently his short films. Gotta say, love talking to him. He's got great vibes. He's got great, just like a good aura about him. So any final thoughts before we get to the conversation?
No, just doubling down on everything you said. It was a ton of fun talking to Bryce. I loved, like, in prep for all of our interviews, we go and we learn a little bit about people, and it was just fun to learn some of the stuff that we talk about in the episode.
Oh, dude, the fun facts are so fun in this one.
The fun facts are fun, and we chatted with him for a little bit after, some stuff that you guys didn't get to hear, and he's a pal now, and there's a good chance that you guys will see him again on the pod in the future. So you're gonna like the episode.
Absolutely. On that note, we will get you guys over to our conversation with Bryce McGuire, writer and director of Night Swim. We'll catch you on the other side for mostly horror recommendations. All right, we are joined today by Bryce McGuire. Bryce is a writer and director whose new feature film, Night Swim, is out in theaters on January 5th. Bryce, thank you so much for joining us today.
So happy to be here, and I will try not to talk about Godzilla -1 for the entire time.
Dude.
I promise.
Oh, I didn't know it was that kind of... We should have had you on 2 weeks ago when we did our Godzilla -1 conversation.
I can't stop thinking about it after seeing it about 2 weeks ago. But what's about Night Swim, other aquatic-based terrors, and but look, we can talk Godzilla. I mean, we can get
sure.
We'll save time. We'll save time for Godzilla. Was it your favorite horror? Was it your favorite horror film of 2023? Where does it rank in your 2023?
So I would actually kind of put that under the category of like mostly horror, right?
Absolutely.
It's not a true. I mean, it's so much a drama and a kind of this, historical kind of snapshot and all these other things. But I think it was like my most like felt film of 2023, like the film I just like fucking like felt the most, and the most just revved up, the most terror, the most like excited, the most emotional. I was like crying in that movie, like straight up. It was just weeping, like, sad. Yes. Oh man, dude, it does it. I love it. I love it.
I agree. I gotta say,
I love when
Bryce has been on the show for under 2 minutes, already understands the concept of mostly horror. Like sometimes you have to explain it to people. You already understand it. It's beautiful. What were you going to say, Sean?
I was just going to say that movie, I love when a movie can make like completely, truly pull at all of the heartstrings and have me, completely invested in all of the human characters, while also in the next shot being like, Godzilla's so fucking cool. Look at that laser beam. Like that was sick. This is sick.
When the spines pop up, just well, here's the thing. Okay, we'll do a little bit. We'll get it a little bit. The thing that I thought was, and people, this whole thing of like out of Hollywood and how much it costs, a big conversation about that. But I think the thing that, as like a filmmaker and people that love movies, that we can maybe learn from that is in not having every single resource and ability to do every single thing. It's kind of like the principle of a shooting on film or shooting underwater, which is that you can't have it all. So you have to have a point of view. You have to know what's important. That's like the Hemingway thing of like that's a writer's job, is just to know what's important and what's not important. And I'm like, that movie knows what's important to -1. It knows what's important to them, and it's so gutsy about that. And if you have one awesome thing like the spines popping up, it's going to set that up, play that out, milk that, for every single beautiful second that it's worth. And like that's so inspiring, because so much of the gratification of any moment is about the path that you laid to get there, and the setup and the payoff of that, and just like the foreplay, right? There's so much foreplay in that movie, and I'm like, man, like we could all learn something from not just fucking all the time.
No, 100%. Not spending it all too quick.
Am I allowed to cuss on this? What's the?
Absolutely.
Okay. I think we're past that, but thank you for asking.
If anything, we're toning it down for certain guests sometimes. Most of the time, it's just a free for all.
This is great. Well, let's come back to we'll bookmark Godzilla for a minute and dive into Bryce. I'll let Sean take it from there.
I wasn't expecting the Godzilla talk, but definitely happy to have it. I do want to. Usually, we start off our interviews with a favorite question that we ask every guest, but we're even going to put that aside for a second. In doing some research on you, kind of going through, looking to see all the different things I could find, looking for your different shorts, I came across an interesting bit of information that I just feel like I have to bring up first.
I'm nervous.
You, before you were making movies, you were tearing up the Tampa Bay local indie rock scene, in a band called the Grecian Urns, and I just have to ask about the band. And I know you guys had a bit of a reunion a bit ago. Could you tell us about that at all? I loved what I heard.
That is, look, guilty as charged. Yeah, it came out of the kind of like indie rock, folk rock kind of scene in Florida, with a lot of great bands like my sister's band, Team Callahan, which, by the way, has a really featured musical moment in Night Swim. The really cool thing about doing this movie was, like, because I do come from a music background, I was able to pull so many friends, bands, and pieces of music in that are just like are great for the movie, but also just feels good to like be able to like bring the fam in and put a spotlight on some really awesome musicians and people I've grown up with. And my college roommate Joe Bushin is in a band called Harmonica Lewinsky, and from Rochester, New York.
Love it.
Great band name, great band. And they have a really great featured musical moment in the pool party. He also scored a little moment, not scored, but we like licensed a piece of like instrumental music for the credit sequence called Swim 3000. Also, so we're talking about music, I wrote and produced the closing track of the movie, which is like this 80s style kind of like banger, like 80s dance kind of track called Deeper. And that was so fun for me, getting to like bring in musicians I worked with in the past, and former band member, former DP of mine wrote a song and produced it and recorded it with me. And this band called Even Beyond, which is a Portland-based like indie like synth pop band. And so they have the track Deeper at the end of the movie. So great piece of digging, and also really relevant to Night Swim, actually.
Yeah,
it's so funny sitting through the credits. I was like, this is a really hyper specific, like they found a track that like references a lot of the things happening in the movie. Like that's like such a crazy happenstance. No, come to find out, you just made that's wonderful. Tying in the movie thing. I do. I'm gonna drop a pin and say, we normally ask about intros to horror. We're gonna hit that. We're gonna kind of keep rolling because we have great segues here, but we do want to come back to that in a little bit. Now, going to Night Swim specifically, for those who may not know, it's based off of a almost 5-minute short that you made some years ago. And if Wikipedia is correct, and I need you to verify this,
know.
It was filmed in Michelle Branch's backyard.
Is that real?
That is real.
That's insane.
And also more than that, the cat in the short film is Michelle's cat.
I love that so much.
Which is so wild. I mean, it's not. I mean, I now have a kind of semi relationship with her just from that experience. But my good friend and co-director Rod Blackhurst, he back in the day comes from music too. He toured with like all these huge bands he lives in Nashville now, but he just knew all these musician people. She lived in Toluca Lake, which was down the street from Studio City. And he's like, hey, can we use your pool? And she's like, yeah, okay. Like, I mean, it was a crew of like 4 people. So minimal footprint. But she was super awesome about it, and like let us like shine lights all night long, and just like stay out of the way, and came out, popped her head out, and was like, how's it going? This looks so cool. And just like awesome. And yeah, that's her pool. That is accurate.
There's a number of things that I want to ask about the short, but I just, in reading about it and again doing research, seeing her name pop up, I was like, that can't be true.
It's random. So random and so true. Yeah.
I missed that bit of information in the research on my end, and he told me, probably like an hour or two ago, and I lost it. I'm a pretty big Michelle Branch fan, so I thought
she's awesome.
That was nuts.
Yeah.
So
she's everywhere.
Yeah.
Going into the short itself. So, I mean, for anyone that has watched the short, and it's available on YouTube to check out, it's similar to your feature-length film in terms of the concept of a pool, or a haunted pool, spooky pool, whatever. But it's dissimilar in most other ways. And so I'm curious if you could walk us through the adaptation process. So is it something where when you were making this short, you had a concept already, boiling underneath, or was it something where you had the opportunity to take your proof of concept and extend it, and you had to create a new feature length version of that, because obviously there's not enough meat there to just stretch it out over 90 minutes. What was that process kind of like for Night Swim specifically?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could say that we had this whole idea fully baked when making the short, but that's not true at all. I mean, the short was really just an exercise in atmosphere, an exercise in environment. Like, can we make this place scary to, or basically, can we? For me, it was like, can we tap into the way that the pool felt when you were a little kid, and you just watched Jaws, and you had that like, irrational phobia that, like, when the lights were out and you couldn't see the bottom, maybe the bottom didn't exist anymore, and maybe something horrible was rising from the depths to grab you. And it was like, yeah, like, does that still hit as an adult? Can we tap into that kind of primal thing? And then I think, we put it on the internet, and turns out that a lot of people still like shared that irrational feeling about the pool. And then from there, I mean, the truth was, like, for about 3 years after, and part of the reason it took about 10 years from the short to now 2 weeks from the movie coming out, is about, for 3 years after making the short, my manager and agents had like sent it around, and people really liked it as like a directing sample, and people were intrigued by the concept. Like, is there a feature? Is there a feature? Where's the feature? Is there a feature? And for 3 years, my answer was like, no, it's a haunted pool. What? Like, what's the movie? It's a haunted pool. Just leave the house. Just no,
don't go swimming.
I don't go swimming. It's pretty easy to like beat this monster. And for the longest time, it's just like, I just don't see it, and I don't want to do it if it's just going to be kind of artificially, stretching out this kind of like one-off gag, because that could be like the real bad, like, water deathbed, waterbed, version of that. Already it's a haunted pool. It already has this kind of like Roger Corman, Val Lewton, to me, like, in a delightful way. Like, it has this kind of absurd but fun premise to it, and so you want to honor that. But I knew that, like, it would just be bad if you didn't have some good answers to who is this family, what do they want, what are they dealing with, what can they gain from the pool, what can they lose from the pool, and what is the history of this body of water? Is it a pool? Is it more than a pool? How deep does that well go? What are the limitations of its power? And really, like, some things in my life had to happen for me to kind of be like, oh, this is who this family is, and this is what they're dealing with, and this is how they're being kept at this location by more than just being stupid. Like, there's got to be something else, human centric, dramatically centric, that keeps them, that makes this an engaging, the Faustian bargain of it all, and and also just like what the pool can and the pool can do, and what its powers are. And so there were a lot of big answers and big mythology and mysteries had to kind of come before I felt like, okay, now I see the movie, and I see the kind of, whatever, like the parable about the cost of our dreams.
Yeah.
And the American dream, the pool is a symbol of the American dream, and what are each of these characters' dreams that are being kind of like dangled in front of them, and what does the pool offer in terms of what we think we need to be happy, and ultimately, like, what are we willing to give up to attain that happiness, on the human level? Like, all those things kind of had to click in place before it felt like it was worth doing.
Was it a personal thing that actually happened to you, or was it more just letting life kind of pass and getting older and thinking about those things?
Well, there was a personal thing, and I have this friend's permission to speak about this, and I haven't talked about this too often, but this is like known. My friend Dan Myers, who I went to AFI with, and he was an editor there. He was AEing on something that I was working on at the time when he was diagnosed with MS. And we had been talking about Night Swim. He had seen the short, and then basically kind of was like, seeing Dan trying to kind of keep like his dream alive, which is like coming into the office and doing a good job, and being a filmmaker. It's tough. It's like a tough thing to watch, knowing how much he'd sacrificed to kind of be at AFI and things that happened after, and then just seeing someone like trying to kind of hold on to that. And then I just got us talking about, someone dealing with that, and then who would that character that would be most affected by something that's a degenerative illness to their body. And it's like, well, in the kind of iconography of like the suburban neighborhood, the backyard swimming pool, to me, baseball fits right in there with the kind of, it's such a larger than life symbol for like the American dream. American, it's so elevated, so lofty. Like if you look at these baseball movies, they're so extra.
Yeah.
It's always some, The Natural or A Field of Dreams. It's like they're so mythic and like over the top. Mm-hmm. Like, Excalibur lightning bolt hits the Wonder Boy. It's like, it's so, but I love it. I like love those baseball movies for how grandiose and like operatic they feel. Yeah. And to me, it just felt like baseball, the mystical baseball movie and the Venn diagram overlap, and the Faustian Bargain horror movie are both about wish fulfillment, and is just, there's some place in which those movies overlap that was like really intriguing to me. And I had this feeling that if you could believe this family's predicament and you could understand why he would want to get back to being healthy so badly, given his career and what he sacrificed for that profession, that I kind of just hope that the grooves of us rooting for a comeback story would run so deep that the audience would almost on default find themselves caught up in the comeback narrative of it all. And by the time you get that baseball practice, you're like, fuck yeah, let's go. Like,
yes. Yeah.
That you're almost kind of like, and then you're kind of like the other shoe drops. You're like, oh, whoa, am I rooting for the, oh no. And there's almost, you'd be culpable and you'd be swept up without knowing the cost. And that was always really, like, I don't think I'd seen a horror movie do a baseball thing like that before. Like,
sports and horror don't overlap that often in my
they should, but
I can't think of anything off the top of my head, at least. Yeah.
And it was always, I mean, it's, it's not being marketed sports and horror as much, and I understand why, but it actually is that is a huge part of what's going on in the movie without saying too much. But I think that's so, it is scary because it's like, it's weird to like find yourself swept up in the drama of that. And then you're like, oh no, oh no. That's at least hopefully that kind of rug pulling out feeling that at least that was the ambition to accomplish that by using those two genres.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that's fair. You actually pointing that out makes me realize that is how I felt. And I think it was subconscious, obviously. I'm also not a big baseball guy. I'm almost very vocally an anti-baseball person. But I cared. I was like, this guy needs, I was like, to your point, if this guy doesn't hit a home run in front of these kids, I'm going to lose my mind.
Yeah.
And so I'm really, like I'm glad that came through. I wrote down one thing I wanted to bring up is I think the Stephen King of it all, like the story feels very King-esque. So I guess I just wanted to see if that was a part, because that
huge
the mythic 100%. Aspect of the main character and that drawn out, the fleshed out backstory, but then obviously the mythos of the pool feels King-esque. So I guess huge. Have you been a fan for a long time?
Yeah, long time fan. Hopefully I'm like writing a letter to him right now to get this movie in front of him, and it's funny. I am a longtime fan, but I actually would I'm telling him that, like, you get a lot of these letters, I'm sure, and a lot of them probably say, like, I grew up, I was 7 years old and I read my first thing, and I read it when I was, and for me, it actually was later in life, discovering like the magic of King. And actually the first thing I read on King of King was on writing, his writing book.
Interesting.
Before I'd read any novels. And then I went back and have then since read almost all of his stuff. And so definitely the idea of the evil lurking in plain sight, the Trojan horse of something that's meant to be safe, it's meant to be comforting, that's meant to be alluring, whether that's the 1958 Plymouth Fury or that's the family dog, any of those things. I love the idea of flipping them, ruining them, subverting them, and obviously, but the thing is, like, people have done that, but like King does that with so much like gravitas and like so much like humanity, and like it's all of his stuff is so character driven.
Yeah.
And I think that was definitely influential. Like you can have it both ways. It can be really scary and really high concept, and also like really grounded in this kind of human story of like, what are you willing to give up to have this thing you think you need to be happy? And that's King was huge in that for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Obviously, we love Stephen King on the show, and he's inspired so many people.
Almost
and
everyone
will continue to inspire.
in the genre.
Yeah. I mean, it's
in some way, shape, or form.
An absolute master.
Yeah.
We're gonna swing it back a little bit to intros to horror. You talked about finding King a little bit later in life. Watching this movie reminded me of some of my intros to horror. I don't know if you've ever seen the show Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Of course, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, Dead Man's Float.
No, of course. Of course.
Yeah, I was thinking after this movie, I was like, so many horror movies have great pool scenes. It Follows, Pet Sematary, things like that. But and even if they're really like some of the most iconic moments in the scene, I haven't seen a movie that I can think of that focuses as much on the pool. And the only thing I could think of was one of the scariest things I saw at the age of 5 or 6 in Dead Man's Float, Are You Afraid of the Dark? So we're going to swing it back to our favorite question. We're looking for your intros to the genre. Anything that you may have seen as a little kid, coming out from your room at night and peeking behind the couch and seeing something on the TV you weren't supposed to, or having an adult. Do you have anything like that you could share with us, or any scary pool stories?
Yeah. Well, I'll start with the media influence, but like kind of obliquely referencing this before, but like I was raised in kind of a conservative, like fundamentalist Christian family. And I was homeschooled, 5 kids, lived a very like isolated existence at the time. But my mom and my parents both, or like kind of almost paradoxically, maybe like very creative and into stories and into literature. Like my mom's like taught like Shakespeare and like a lit professor, and so there's a lot of things actually, and they're not going to be the things that most people talk about probably on the show, because they weren't like I did not see Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street until I was in college. So I'm a late bloomer in that stuff. Okay. But what I was reading was a book of cultural like myths, legends, and folklore from all over the world, because that was like basically like an encyclopedia of folklore.
Yeah.
So I'm reading about all these weird, body snatching creatures like the shigu and the Japanese water ghost, and this story I just remember like haunting me called The Cry of the Night, which was about this. It's in like Native American folklore, but it's something that imitates the call of a child in distress.
Kind of like a skinwalker sort of situation.
Yeah, exactly. It would be in that kind of subgenre, and that scared the absolute shit out of me as a kid, because I just remember like just hearing like a kid, like you hear someone yelling, and like your brain is trained to be like, oh, that's my sibling, that's my little sister. And then what if that was something preying on that the innocence and the simplicity of that instinct, again, using that against you? And even that, I'm like, that has some King thing. Something that's supposed to be one thing suddenly is hiding in, a wolf in sheep's clothing. The thing that we were allowed to watch growing up, though, weirdly, was like old things were okay. So I grew up watching The Twilight Zone like a maniac. Yes. The original Rod Serling, I grew up on that stuff. I've seen every single episode. My parents, my mom and dad like loved it, and like that got a pass because it was black and white. And it was like on the older, beautiful golden age of America where everything was perfect and fine and innocent. And so that was okay to go. And also Hitchcock, because it was like more literary and old. Hitchcock got a pass. So those two things slipped through the kind of like really fine filter of like my kind of sheltered childhood. But I'm looking back now, I'm like, those rule. Those are both amazing. Yeah. And are so influential to me. And it's funny, just think about this idea of almost or mostly horror. It's truly, so much of my influences would fall into the mostly horror category. Like Night of the Hunter for me. Like, is Night of the Hunter a horror movie? Like, I mean, yes, in the sense that it's Robert Mitchum playing a murderous minister that's been told by God to kill these kids and steal their money. I mean, that's a horror movie. and yet it's more like this like Southern Gothic like fairy tale.
Beautiful.
It feels like this almost like proto Guillermo del Toro, or this kind of magical realism, like this demented children's book come to life. But those types of things were like really what were like super formative to me. Things that like, you know, reading Ray Bradbury growing up, huge, and Edgar Allan Poe. They, again, literary. So I'm like really exposed to this really macabre stuff, but it kind of came from like literature first, and then movies I was really delayed on with scary stuff, weirdly enough. So that's probably unexpected, but like that's Twilight Zone and
no,
Bradbury and
I have a Twilight Zone tattoo. I can't fully get it out, and the lighting's terrible, but it's the door. I'm a full Twilight Zone nerd, so I feel you on that.
Amazing writing, amazing. Well, actually, speaking of tattoos, one I also saw because it falls in the same category was let's see, Creature from the Black Lagoon. Can you see this? Let's see, go this way.
Yes,
it's nice. That's a good one.
It's Creature.
I have
and Julie Adams kissing.
That's so good. That's so good.
That.
Kindred spirits right here. Love Creature. I have a giant Creature
but like that's
poster above my TV.
Is that horror? Like technically yes, but also kind of not really. It's almost this more like Beauty and the Beast mythos. Like it's this kind of weird tragic love story in a way. And yet seeing Julie Adams, beautiful, kicking legs and feet, and then the creature's web claws, you know, pawing right below her, reaching up there. I mean, that's also like, for someone who had water on the brain, grew up in Florida, surrounded on all sides by water, like anything aquatic based. I mean, Jaws was hugely formative for me. I did see Jaws young. I saw Jaws when I was about 10. And that ruined my whole childhood, my pool, the ocean, lake, bathtub, you know, you name it. Any water was no longer safe after Jaws. I've seen Jaws, you know, probably 100 times. It's my most influence, and you can probably feel Jaws, how large that looms over Night Swim, certainly.
Yeah. Still freaks me out to this day. Talked about it countless times on the show. Sharks freak me out. Not one of those people. Yeah. I'll never be.
As they should.
We've had conversations on the show where people are like, well, they're not that dangerous, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, listen, just leave me out of the shark world. I'm not trying to kill all sharks, nothing like that. But
I have my
space. I'm not interested. No cage diving or anything like that for me.
Church and state. Keep us. Also, pools are not safe. I'm trying to tell these people, like, listen, the pool's not your friend. You've got a tiger on a chain in the backyard that you're pretending is domesticated. It's still water, motherfucker. It's still water. Like, you don't belong in the water. That is not your ecosystem anymore. You can't breathe underwater.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well,
you're in danger.
So I grew up with a pool in my backyard. I was a very scared kid. I was into a bunch of like macabre things, but I wasn't an avid horror fan until about 10. But I spent every single day in my pool, and I just remember, you know, swimming with friends or parents or anything. Everything felt fine, but the second everyone else got out of the pool,
that's right.
There's just like a weird feeling, right. And I'd force myself through it. But yeah, there's this movie reminded me of that. Sometimes you just suddenly realize, wait, I'm alone in this environment that isn't exactly for me. And who knows if something can pull me into another dimension. I don't know.
Man. And your body keeps a score, and some part of your DNA is telling you, no, you went from being an apex predator to dropping down the ladder and you're now prey, you're fish food.
Yep.
You don't belong there. It is not 100%. For you. And so look, I feel like I'm doing like a public service by scaring kids.
You're the new generation of fear for the.
You gotta warn them.
Pool fear.
You gotta warn them.
You gotta let them know. Listen, it's not safe. Kids are bonking their heads. They get knocked out. They get hair stuck in the drain. Get held under. Pool
so
parties.
Many people pee in there.
Paying attention. People peeing in there. Bacteria. Oh my goodness.
These are some of the things you don't even talk about in the film, and they're still
right.
The list is still going.
It's in between the lines.
Yes, exactly. One thing, you know, we do want to talk about the cast in this film is great. I know it's such a general thing to talk about, but I mean, you have Wyatt Russell, who is in honestly some of the better horror or mostly horror things. Like he's in the new Captain America stuff, but Overlord is great. He's in one of the best, probably the most horror episode of Black Mirror.
Yes, my favorite
Playtest
episode.
is 10 out of 10.
Amazing.
I mean,
incredible.
Carrie, obviously, I can't think of a lot of horror things she's been in, but Banshees of Inisherin
She's done basically none.
Phenomenal. Yeah. So, I mean, breaking into that space, you have Amelie and Gavin, who are great. So, I mean, you have these actors who are coming together, and not only that, you're doing this in probably the biggest feature that you've made to this point. What are the steps that you're kind of taking to create this familial feel? Because you have, I mean, not only are they, people that they're 4 different actors coming together to create a family, but you have, Amelie's from Germany. I think Carrie's from Ireland. Like, you know what I mean? Like different people from different backgrounds, like couldn't be more dissimilar to some extent. What are you doing to create that familial feel?
Yeah, I mean, we had a little bit of rehearsal time, which definitely helps. I would kind of write like a little, essay or something that's kind of like, here's how I kind of see, or basically, it's not even how I see this character, because I really try and let the actors find what they see in that character and try not to get in the way of them discovering something about the character. But it's more like, here's why this character and the way I've written this character is important to the story that we're trying to tell. Because then that allows the actor to help you, to basically just help you be like, okay, that's why some of these choices are in play, and here's what he's trying to communicate, and here's the, you know, trying to see your own mom in this, and in a way having it be this kind of like for Eve's character, this every woman and every mom, and how someone's kind of a little bit intentional at the beginning plays this really like the glue. They hold everything together, they stay in the gap, they make it all work. And then that character who's a little bit kind of in the background holding things together has to be thrust into the pilot seat and really take control of the movie and take charge of the movie. So just knowing in the script like where that character is going to go, there's actually certain things that Carrie like really wanted to like understate and underplay some things at the beginning, so that we felt the journey of stepping up a bit more into that. So I think, and I learned, by the way, I learned so much about how to work with actors of this caliber and how to try and create the conditions for them to do the best work. And I didn't always do that perfectly. I mean, there was times when I was like learning on the fly. I'm like, okay, like I can see that, like that I gave you too much. So this is me reacting to that and pulling it back and creating space for you to find that discovery, because I'm not serving the movie if I'm getting in the way of your process.
Sure.
And so it's not about me exacting control. That's a temptation. As a kind of first time director of this level, you're so scared and so insecure that you don't belong there, that I think an impulse is to be like, almost like overexert control or have an answer for every single little thing or micromanage to prove that you have a vision. But actually that's not what you should be doing. The confidence comes in having humility and trusting that like they have done this more than you know what you want for the movie, and you protect the movie, but like let them help you, and I think that's when things started to really work, was just seeing how much I had to gain and how much the movie had to gain by really giving space for them to bring their stuff to it. It's always going to be a little bit different for like younger performers versus like a Carrie or a Wyatt. The cool thing I will say about Wyatt, it specifically in this thinking about the movie versus thinking about getting so micro on like notes on every little thing. It's like big picture. How are we telling the story? How are we communicating this feeling? Wyatt is super, super smart and strategic about, he's thinking like a producer. He really is. That dude is thinking about the movie. He's thinking about the audience, popcorn in hand, in a dark theater with 200 people, and what creates a moment in that context. He's not like methody in his head. He's like, what can happen here? I mean, he's already done the work internally, so it's not that he's already done the character stuff, but he's really zoomed out to be like, what's the moment? What's the opportunity we have here to throw someone's popcorn in the air? And I'm trying. Maybe I shouldn't say that. There's one. Maybe something we'll reveal later. There's one moment that's like a scare in the movie and like a kind of a payoff of the Marco Polo kind of game that was like a Wyatt. Like, what if I said? What if I just like screamed? I was like, oh, that's amazing. That was Wyatt. That was Wyatt's idea on set. And the dude will try anything. Like he has to go to a pretty extreme big place. Mm-hmm. And that dude is not thinking self-preservationally. He is not afraid to go big, look stupid, whatever. That dude is just like, what is the moment? And I'm going to go full Jack Nicholson, and I'm going to go. And I love that. And I knew that from him. I mean, I'd seen it in like his other work that he's not afraid to go there, but I knew that this role needed that from him. And he just came through, man. He just brought it and just was never afraid to try something and go big. It was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. If there's one thing that I feel that I've picked up on, I think I can speak for Steve too, just from doing the show and talking to so many creatives working on these movies and these big collaborative pieces, it's that when one person's, especially like a director, isn't trying to like hoard all this control or like just make everybody else work through their vision, when people have room to play and contribute and stuff, it just always gives the best work. And I think that comes through with your family. Like it's tough when a movie has something really cool or spooky that's working for me, but I don't believe the family, and this wasn't the case, so that was great.
Good.
We obviously don't want to spoil too much about the movie, so we're trying not to nitpick too many parts. Yeah. I do want to bring up, we went through some of your shorts. We didn't get to watch all of them, but I noticed a couple things. There's one thing that I noticed specifically. I don't think this is too much of a spoiler for Night Swim, but there is a part with a glass with some water, and it
wow,
moves.
Okay.
Yeah.
Respect.
So there's a part with a glass. There's a part with a glass and some water, and I'm not going to say what happens in that scene, but you have that in Night Swim. But you also have that in Every House is Haunted, and you have it in the Whistler. Wow. And I'm wondering, why is that so important? Why is that idea? What's that from? Is that unless you don't want to tell me, you can tell me off recording.
No, I'm just like I'm impressed. Color me impressed. That's good. That's good.
There's something there. I was like, that idea is, he's got a thing for that. What is that?
Yeah. Sometimes I don't ask. Sometimes I just have to know that there's something about no. Sometimes it's that Jungian thing of like, don't ask too many questions.
Okay.
Just know that there's something about that like it worked before, and I'm drawn to it, and I don't exactly know why. I mean, this one was, just water, dude. I don't know, man. I don't exactly know, but sometimes I try not to pry too much. I mean, there's a lot of things like that, actually, but that's just like, just let those fetishes and those obsessions be what they are. It's like kind of like that David Lynch type thing of like, you're chasing you're trying to catch the big fish, and you're just like, let a little of it be magic. Okay. And I guess that's the unsatisfying but probably best answer I can give. I'm just happy enough that you noticed that those things all exist, and that makes me happy.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm going to say insert. I will accept your ambiguity. I'm going to say insert Frodo meme of you keep your secrets, but I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, it feels like to the watcher, watching the shorts and then watching the feature, it feels like the payoff. It feels like the something where you didn't do the payoff in the shorts, but you have the payoff in the feature, which is on a larger scale, and you were finally able to do it, is what it feels like to the people watching it. So I guess I want to throw that out there.
Well, there is without spoiling anything at all, but it was gratifying to me the degree to which we got to pay that off in the feature, because it's like a pretty like gnarly, stressful, gnarly moment. Scared that like I'm like, for me it was like, if we're gonna do this thing, like if I'm gonna make this little like echo through these things, like I want to really like make use of it and like turn it into a real thing in the movie. And I'm like, I'm really happy with how that little through line comes through, and it complicates the action in that kind of third act set piece.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's good payoff. So before we let you go, we want to talk about a couple of things from your shorts, because you have really interesting shorts, obviously Night Swim being one of them. But the most recent one we were lucky enough to be able to check out before that we chatted. Every House is Haunted is this really unique ghost story tale that is holistically really endearing. And I'm curious your thoughts on ghost stories in general. It seems like you're toying with that a bit in a number of the things that you've done. And so I'm curious if that's kind of a concept that you, obviously it's a concept that you gravitate towards because you've made things around them, but your thoughts on ghost stories and the power that they hold.
Did you grow up in a haunted house?
In a way, we won't get into that. But yeah, well, you know, I mean, yeah, mostly horror. Again, here we are kind of like dancing between these. And maybe that's why I love the Korean so much. And maybe that's why I love Bong so much.
Mm-hmm.
Because like talking about like mostly horror stuff, like Bong Joon-ho is like, so, you know, I worship that dude.
Mm-hmm.
And have for a long time, because like when I first saw like Memories of Murder or like Mother, I didn't even see The Host and stuff till later. Like I'm like his earliest stuff, like I'm like, oh, you can have someone like drop kicking someone down a hill right next to someone like having this really intense cathartic emotional release right next to this like truly terrifying set piece of someone crouched in like a fucking rice field stalking you on the way home from the I'm like, attacking someone. Like I'm like, you, so like, oh, like you can, of course you can do that, because like that's like life is terrifying and absurd and hilarious and gut-wrenching and all of those things, and it can be all those things within a really short amount of time. And I think that like oftentimes in America we get like pretty like in our like locked into our grooves of doing like one tone. Mm-hmm. And like the Koreans just don't they don't believe that at all. And like a lot of Asian cinema doesn't really believe that at all. It's like melodrama, drama, terror, horror, humor, everything can live side by side. And that's, I really gravitate to that stuff a lot. And Every House is Haunted was me really trying to this kind of shape-shifting, genre-shifting kind of experiment that was a little bit of all those things, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to add to what you were saying, in that when America does try it often, it seems like it does it in a way that's it can't take itself seriously and it's contradicting itself. I don't love a lot of like horror comedies, for example. This is a simplified version of what you're talking about, but it's a hard thing to balance. And I think just recently I'm starting to see things juggle that mood better and keep it more concise and stuff. I
totally agree with that too. Like horror comedy is different than what like Bong Joon-ho is doing and others are doing. And, you know, Park Chan-wook and Lee Chang-dong and any of these people, I just think like they're so good at like nimbly, like dancing through the minefield of tone and doing it so successfully. Every House is Haunted. I mean, to me, this was kind of about just like someone who's a little bit stuck in a certain version of their life, and they're being haunted by the parts of themselves that they had to let die to be in this relationship. And so it's kind of almost the almost like inside out, like internal metaphor for ghost, how and there's kind of a feature that's being developed around that. And, you know, it's really kind of like each of these ghosts or like some part of her that's been like fallow or like missing, that she's like, it's coming back to life through these characters and this family that they form, this kind of friendship they form. It's like, oh, she's like all these parts that were lost to her are like found again. But ultimately, like, she can't find her answers in these ghosts. It's like you have to find those answers in yourself, literally, not in this kind of weird avatars for the things that you're missing. It has to be like you have to find happiness from within in that kind of simplistic way. But yeah, I just wanted to do a dance scene in a thunderstorm.
I love a bunch of dance
ghosts
scene,
dancing through the house, and
That's fantastic.
I don't know, like I wanted to do it all. Yeah, there's some, I mean, there were some things I will say that I was working on for Night Swim. Like I was practicing certain things with that as well, which so, I mean, the fact that it played South by Southwest and Fantasia and like, it's so funny on that. Like I've been trying to get into South by for like a decade and never had until I made something that I just like didn't give a fuck. It's like I'm doing, this is not a proof of concept or anything. It was based on a short story that I wrote. I'm doing exactly what I want to do with this. And then, of course, that's what happens if you just kind of fearlessly just do you and just make something that you think is cool. And hopefully at that point you've developed some skills where you can like do what you think is cool in like a
good way,
effective way, a good way that you've learned to tone some muscles at that point. But then I guess I would just kind of like, I've done the trying to be David Sandberg, chasing that kind of like model, and that's been effective in different ways. I've done other things that chasing something or chasing this. It's a proof of concept. You're trying to get up for this type of job. You're trying to impress your managers or agents, and that all can be good. And maybe you need to do all those things. But I guess I'm just thinking about if there's some filmmakers listening that they've never done the one for them. Like if you've earned that, and you be honest with yourself, if you've kind of put in the 10,000 hours or put in the reps to like actually know what the fuck you're doing on the craft level, then like you should do that thing you've been wanting to do, even if that doesn't totally make sense, and do it as a short. So you're not taking your whole family and your life savings and going into debt and
sure.
Be responsible. But like, yeah, like do your Every House is Haunted, because that was so gratifying to make that film. And it's not gonna be for everyone. It's like some people are gonna be like, what's going on here? What's this? And other people are gonna like have like loved it. And so I don't know. I just think that like do the thing that's been like gnawing at you and that you really feel, and because like something probably really special is hiding in there somewhere.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's I'm definitely on the love it end. I think there's such an interesting thing there. It also makes me think, just looking at your shorts, I love that you kind of like your shorts feel different than at least a handful of shorts that I've seen, or a lot of shorts that I've seen, where you kind of like introduce this thing right at the end where I'm like, okay, this is supposed to get me interested in absolutely wanting more, like wanting a longer version of this. Right at the end of Every House is Haunted, you have this really cool flash that I love. And I don't know, just leaving me with that feeling is super good. Yeah, I enjoy it immensely, and hearing that there might be a full length something coming from it is great.
Well, I appreciate that. It makes me happy that was intriguing to you, and that tone connected to you. And you don't know. And honestly, dude, I don't know with Night Swim. Like you don't know. You just have to kind of make, because Night Swim, like you got Marco Polo, which is like a banger, and like just like it's gonna scare the shit out of people, and it's like never seen that scene, and it's like fully like where that goes. People don't, from the trailer, you don't know where that scene's going. You got no idea where that's gonna take you into, that what world that's gonna take you into. But it's like, I don't know, like, are people gonna be wanting less of a drama, or are they gonna care about those characters? Are they gonna believe that? They're gonna, it's all those things that you just have to kind of like make what to you is the most fun and interesting and exciting version of the movie, and do that to the best of your ability, knowing that you're not going to get every single thing right, but it's going to land for the people it lands for, and hopefully that's a lot of people. And you just have to you have to make the movie you made. And I'm really excited and interested just to see how that movie kind of like connects with people, and how it lands, or how it, just like what that journey is going to be, because you don't know. You just put that in the world, and you see how it goes, see how it sinks or swims.
Absolutely. I'll tell our listeners right now that, again, we can't spoil. We're not spoiling anything, but I love things that happen in the pool. Talking specifically about what you're talking about right now, there are things that I really want to compliment you on, and I'm not going to do it. But
Sure.
You know what I'm talking about.
The thing I would say that is, I'm really, really pumped up people seeing in this movie and seeing in theaters, is just specifically like the pool, and the part of the pool you've never seen before.
Yes.
Without saying more, I think that's been in my head for so long. And that really is an experience that was like, you've never been there, you've never seen that, I promise you. And that really must be seen on the biggest screen that you can see it on, because that was designed to transport you to another fucking dimension. And I do want to leave people like, I hope that takes your breath away, and I hope that you feel that image in the way that I felt it in my head so many years ago, of like, oh, whoa, that would be so cool. Like that was like, I want that poster on someone's wall, you know what I'm talking about. People have to watch it to find out. But anyway, I do want to end being like, that gets me fired up, truly. Like, I just can't wait to see the reactions to like that aspect of the pool. Okay, and then moving on. So see it on January 5th, the 4th, that weekend. That really matters to support original films in Hollywood. We'll keep making more cool stuff. If you build it, they will come. So let's let these people come and keep making more cool stuff.
Bryce, it's been great having you. We don't want to take up too much of your time. We talked a little bit earlier about a segment that we do at the end of all of our episodes that we call Mostly Horror Recs. We're looking for maybe a horror and a not horror movie or piece of media that you would like to share with people that you feel like maybe isn't on everyone's radar.
Okay. Mostly horror. It's two things. Okay, let's go with okay, I'm gonna try and, we've already talked about Jaws, we've talked about King. I'm gonna go with a couple of films I've been thinking about recently. One is this French film called Diabolique. Diabolique, you know this film, the Clouseau. Let's just say it has to do with water. There's a water aspect to it. It's I'd call it a horror movie. It's a horror thriller mystery. It's 1955. I'd say like 55, yeah, 55. The other movie I would plug, I think, is also 1955, which is, I mentioned it earlier, but if you haven't seen Night of the Hunter, go watch that movie. Run, do not walk to see that movie, because that movie was, I mean, famously, it's Guillermo del Toro's favorite movie, I believe. I got to talk with Guillermo because there's something that we're locked in on Creature from the Black Lagoon. We're locked in on Night of the Hunter. Yeah. And he's just like the patron saint of genre. Just like bless that man and everything he does. Like, just the sweetest person alive.
You saw Cabinet of Curiosities, right? You watch everything.
Oh yeah, of course.
Came through.
Yeah.
We're working our way towards Del Toro. We're gonna get there.
Yeah.
Please, I cannot wait. And then, so I know I'm supposed to do like one, but I have to mention in this trifecta, these are a little like pretentious, but they're actually like really good and scary, and people I think will dig them. Yeah. Diabolique, Night of the Hunter, and then the other one is, this Japanese ghost film called Kwaidan.
Kwaidan sounds super familiar, but I don't think I've seen it. I think Coulter.
Watch that shit.
You're thinking Qui-Gon from Star Wars, Sean.
Qui-Gon slaps. It's some of the most vivid, interesting, frightening visuals that you'll ever see. I mean, just Google Qui-Gon with a Q. You're going to be like, what is this movie? Influential on a bunch of different filmmakers, from, Kubrick to Wes Anderson to others. It's popped up to Alex Garland in Annihilation. It was inspired by some of the visuals from this. Qui-Gon rules. All three of those. Okay, that's right.
The matte paintings,
giant, elaborate matte paintings, just in another world they're creating. Really, really great. And then the not horror. Oh yeah, okay. I'll do one. We talked about Godzilla -1. We won't retread that, but I thought The Holdovers was absolutely just a delightful film. I loved it. Not horror at all, but I saw it in the theater and I was like, this is like some like Mike Nichols, like 70s. They just don't make films like that anymore. And it was funny. There's pathos. It's human, but it's sincere, but it's not like cheesy. It like rides this line of like always being entertaining, always being funny and irreverent, but also just being like, just a beautiful, like sweet and like, I want to say uplifting. That's going to make people think it's like a Hallmark movie, but it's truly not a Hallmark movie. It's uplifting in the most like, maybe we need a movie like this right now in the world kind of feeling.
Yeah.
So I absolutely adored that film, and shout out to Mark Johnson, who is a producer of that movie and a friend of mine and someone I've worked with in the past. And just shout out to Mark and Tom Williams and the whole Grand Via team. And that movie rules. Go see Holdovers.
Anything with Paul Giamatti is just
100%.
bound to be
Can't go wrong.
To be great. Yeah,
it's gonna be good.
Well, those are great recs. I am gonna check out Diabolique and Qui-Gon as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Love Night of the Hunter. Bryce, really appreciate your time. As you said, we'll say it again. Night Swim comes out the weekend of January 5th. Check that out. You also got, I mean, you're one of the writers on Baghead coming out soon. You also got Imaginary. You're tapped into the horror sphere right now, so we're really excited to see everything that's coming up. And maybe we'll get you back on soon to just do another, Godzilla -1 rehash.
Yeah. Listen, you all are awesome. The best conversation I've had about the movie and about genre stuff in a while. I really appreciate the deep dive and the homework. You guys rule. Thank you for your brain power and your time, and keep on rocking in the free world and keep doing what you're doing.
Wow,
Thanks, Bryce. We really appreciate it.
That.
All right. Thank you guys so much for listening to our conversation with Bryce McGuire, and shout out to Bryce for joining us for a bit there to talk about Night Swim. Again, Night Swim is out now by the time that you're listening to this, so definitely go check it out. It is now time for our mostly horror recommendations of the week, and I can go first, actually.
Go for it.
I saw a movie that I actually wasn't too excited to see, or that I cared that much about. I had heard a lot of people talking about the Iron Claw, and
Iron Claw.
as I do most Decembers, I wanted to watch all the new films
like
that are coming
Gadget?
out.
The Claw?
I don't yeah. The Iron Claw
Gadget next time.
It's not that one. The Iron Claw is a new movie by Sean Durkin. It stars Zac Efron, Jeremy Allen White, amongst other people, and it tells the story of the wrestling family, the Von Erichs. And listen, I don't like wrestling.
Sure.
I think wrestling is goofy. Yeah. And it probably made me not like this movie as much as I should have. But
sure,
the film is really good. The performances, it's whenever I see people that are like, Zac Efron's transcendent and blah, 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 I'm like, okay. But like, dude, Zac Efron is so fucking good in this movie.
Really?
Like,
nice.
He got his head all the way in the game, and he just, it's unbelievable. I didn't know that he had like these sort of acting chops.
Sure.
And so it's a hell of a watch. This is a true story as well about the Von Erich family. Mm-hmm. And they are just a like cursed family is like the only way to put it. And the film doesn't even show the film maybe shows like half of all the bad shit that's happened to like people in their family.
Okay.
It's just unreal. Like when you watch the movie and then you go read about their actual story. And if you like wrestling, there's a lot of wrestling in this. It's very like, 80s vibes, which are very fun. But yeah, I had to recommend it. I enjoyed it. I'd say like 7 out of 10. I think Sydney liked it more than I did. A lot of people have really loved this film. But definitely go see it, even just for Zac Efron. Like, he's making you make some tears. He's a tearjerker just by himself. I was gonna say he's jerking for tears, but that doesn't sound.
That's
not something. Not something you should say.
I saw like a clip. I saw a clip of him and Jeremy Allen White talking on probably on TikTok or something about the movie, and I didn't know that it was happening until like a week or so ago. I'm not into wrestling, but I kind of have wanted to see it. Like it looked, the little snippets I saw, I was like, maybe this is also, I feel like we've talked about wrestling on the show before, I don't remember, but did you play like N64 wrestling games?
I think wrestling is
that's
so
like
stupid.
Even as a kid, I was like, I don't get wrestling. It's all clearly fake. That doesn't look like a punch. But the N64 wrestling games were clunky as shit, but so much fun. And there's a ton of drama and crazy things that have happened in the wrestling like industry and community that's fun to learn about. Like Coulter will go on a ramble, and it's always interesting.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I believe it. I get that the that it's people know
the
that
lore
it's
is
fake.
rich.
It's putting on a show and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. I just don't care.
It's not my thing. I get it.
I think it's so goofy, and that made it hard at times for me to be like into it, because I was like, God, I think this is just so silly.
I never watched it growing up,
but
so I feel
shout out to all the people that like wrestling. You guys will probably like the Iron Claw. So that's my rec this week. Any what are your recs?
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to do like a little twofer. I mentioned it in the episode, but I want to re-recommend again. I know I've talked about the show a million times, but everyone should go watch, especially if you just recently watched Night Swim. Everyone should go watch the Dead Man's Float episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark? If you haven't seen it, it's quick. I know that I briefly mention it with Bryce, but my actual rec for the week is I've been just pounding holiday movies in, man, because holiday horror movies have never been a genre that I love. I still don't think that there's many that I absolutely love. Gremlins is top tier. Krampus is obviously top tier. Yep. But I was searching for some other things. I have a new appreciation for Black Christmas, which I know we've talked about before, and you don't love a ton. One? Yeah, the OG one. I threw it on like twice this year, but I found a movie from 2010 that is
I saw you post about it.
It's so fucking weird. It's called Rare Exports, and I don't even know what to. I don't want to spoil any. Basically, it's a foreign film, and there is a family sort of situation that come across something that has been dug up that is not as dead as people may have anticipated, and it is very Christmas. It's very goofy. Don't have your kids in the room because there may be a lot of nudity. There may be like so much nudity in this one specific part. That's all I'm gonna say. Like there's so much, and I want to say it so bad, but I'm not going to. Everyone watch it. It is entertaining as fuck, and that's where I'm gonna leave it. Okay. So it's definitely the kind where if you can get some friends together, some people that are down to have a laugh, a spooky laugh, do it. And it plays it. Here's the other thing. I want to stress this. It's so funny and ridiculous, but it plays it straight. Like that's what I love about it is that it's not laughing at itself.
Okay.
If it is, it's all under its breath. It's all it plays it so straight, and that's why it works, and it's fucking goofy as shit, and I love it.
Hell yeah. I saw you post about it, and I've seen people post about it too this season. And I've wanted to watch it, but
which the last thing I'm going to say is you saw me post about it on our on Instagram and stuff, but I'm finally using Letterboxd. I'm active on it. Yeah, I've logged.
Is it your normal thing?
Movies.
I'll follow you right now.
It's I think so. I have to look. I'm not. Do you write reviews on there like a lot, or are you just rating?
I write review. I write like quick things so that way I remember kind of how I felt about them.
Gotcha.
If your thing is Hypocrite Inc., I just followed you. Although maybe it's not Hypocrite Inc.
Oh, is there a Hypocrite Inc. on there? I'm Hypocrite X. Maybe I have two on accident.
Maybe.
In which case I'll go to the Hypocrite Inc. one.
But you already logged all these things. It's all good. The people listening to this don't care about it.
If you're following Steve and you're a Letterboxd user, I'm going to get active. I'm going to give you the actual one soon, and we'll figure it out. But for now, I'm starting my journey, and that's what's important.
Follow me on Letterboxd. Steven is average. Listen, you can also follow us. You want to follow the podcast? We're on Instagram at Mostly Horror Pod, TikTok, Twitter at Mostly Horror. You can send us emails. Tell us what you thought about Night Swim. Tell us what you thought about any of the films that we recommend. Mostly Horror Movie Night at gmail.com. I'm everywhere, including Letterboxd at Steven is Average. Sean is on all the socials at Hypocrite Inc. or Hypocrite.Inc. And that is all we got for you this week. We will catch you next time.
Goodbye.